Today we're going to be going through every Elden Ring or Remembrance boss in order of how you find them and deciding if they are overrated, underrated, or properly rated by the community. This was inspired by a really awesome video from a few years ago by Ember, but his was before the DLC came out. Make sure you check it out after this one though, it's a great video. Let's get into it. Godfrey the Grafted is the first Remembrance boss players run into. His moveset is mostly just wild axe swings and him flailing his arms at you. It's a cool couple of attacks that you have to jump over, and that's about it. That's until phase 2 when he grafts a dragon arm into him in the cutscene, which is just insane. No doubt that cutscene is unbelievably awesome. He now has a flamethrower as well as a grab attack that you can see from the dragon arm that you'll see from a mile away. It's very easy to avoid. Everyone and their mother calls Godfrey the Grafted underrated, and they tend to defend his lack of difficulty by tying it back to his lore of him being so weak and pathetic compared to the other shard-bearing demigods. You'll see throughout this video, I love the lore, but this argument doesn't make the fight any more fun. Outside of the dragon graft cutscene, nothing here does it for me. He's overrated. Renala, Queen of the Full Moon, is found at the end of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and she's a demigod known as one of the greatest sorcerers in the game's lore. Phase 1, you assault a bunch of children, which is just the warm-up for Phase 2. Soul Stage is just breathtaking. You're fighting on a moonlit ocean as she sends magical attacks at you. Catch up to her, and you'll see the downside very quickly, and that's the difficulty. She can be stun-locked into oblivion with her low poise, and her low health can make this a quick fight. I get why people want it to be more of a challenge, and I agree that the gameplay doesn't demand much. At the same time though, the OST and visual spectacle, as well as their importance to the story, are all incredible, even if the combat itself is simple. So yeah, I feel like she never gets her due. I'm going to go with underrated here and give Renala her flowers. Now we have Starscourge Radahn, our first fight with Radahn. This dude is him. Let's recap his story real quick. Radahn was the mightiest of the demigods until he fought Malenia. He was beating her ass so bad that Malenia got so terrified and scared, she unleashed a Scarlet Rot explosion. Basically the high fantasy version of a nuclear bomb in this game, selfishly destroying all of Caelid just to kill Radahn. She then got her weak ass carried back to the Halig Tree by one of her soldiers, and people still have the audacity to call this fraud undefeated. Radahn is alive and well, sort of, because he's still wandering around the Wailing Dunes of Caelid, but he doesn't have his wits about him anymore. He's a shell of his former self when we come into the game, but unlike Malenia, he isn't taking a nap. The boss starts with the Festival of War building it up. It's one of the coolest moments of your first playthrough. The fight itself is good, but what makes it an all-timer is when he disappears and comes back flying at you from the sky as a comet. It's just unreal. So Radahn has a lot of fanboys from people who are familiar with his lore, and he gets a lot of hype from people who only played the game once or twice. And even though his replay value is the real thing that holds him back from being one of the truly great bosses, I think the people who do replay the game to this day still give him his due for how great he was on a first playthrough. He's a boss people love, but they should. He's not overrated. The community has it right here. I'm going to go properly rated as a Radahn fanboy myself. The Regal Ancestor Spirit I've always been extremely harsh on. He's the ghostly deer elk guy. It's a really cool and unique design and more of a spectacle boss than any real challenge. That's all fine and good, but the problem I have is reusing content for a Remembrance boss. I constantly see people crying and complaining about the reused bosses at the end of dungeons and in the open world. Shout out Hey Tarnish for this being the only argument I need. Elden Ring has more unique bosses than any other Souls game, even with all those reused bosses, so get absolutely fucked, you Bloodborne fanboys. That was a bit of a tangent, but my point is it's a totally legitimate complaint when we're talking about Remembrance bosses. These are supposed to be the main bosses, so I'm really not okay with the Regal Ancestor Spirit being one. From what I've seen about the Regal Ancestor Spirit, that seems to be people's takeaway as well, unless they missed the first fight. So I'm going to go properly rated here. Rykard, Lord of Blasphemy, is a disgusting, blasphemous snake, and everybody loves this guy. Like, usually gimmick bosses in these games get a lot of hate. Like, think about Yorm, for example. He never really got his due when the game was, it's the current Souls game out. But for whatever reason, Rykard, people have loved from day one. He's actually considered one of the best bosses. Yeah, so from what I've seen, what people say about him is that he's one of the best gimmick bosses, if not the best gimmick bosses, and it's right in line with my line of thinking, and I'm glad he gets his due, so I'm going to go properly rated. And now we have Astel, Naturalborn of the Void. Side note, real ones remember when Elden Ring first came out, I'm saying like the first week or so, people were hyping up this guy a lot on TikTok and stuff and showing videos of him one-shotting with the lasers. Like, wasn't that weird? I never understood that. Anyways, in the years since, he's been seen as a pretty average to below average fight. I don't think people love this fight by any means, but few people hate him like I do, and I really do not like this fight. It's just such an awkward fight, and I just hate some of his attacks. Like, his ground wave doesn't do insane damage, but it always hits me, and his grab after his teleport is just too fast. So I'll say, all things considered, he's pretty overrated. I don't like him at all, and I don't think the community hates on him enough. Morgott, the Omen King. God, what were they thinking here? Soulsborne fans will argue about literally anything. Tell them the sky is blue and they'll tell you it's more of a light blue, skill issue. But one thing everyone seems to agree on is Morgott being phenomenal in every way except for his health bar. And they're right, he just dies way too fast. This could have been one of the best bosses of all time with a few changes, and everybody but From Software knows it. I'm pretty sure someone fact-check me in the comments, but he has the most attacks out of any boss in the game. He has amazing lore. Everything about this fight is just phenomenal except for that one thing. But yeah, the community does have it right, so let's go with properly rated here. I just wanted to glaze Morgott a bit there. Lichdragon Fortissax, he has some similar issues. He's another boss that's health pool is a bit low for where you find him. It makes him one of the easiest bosses in the game. He just doesn't feel like balanced for where you fight him, but like where in the story, because he's optional. I guess those are a little harder to balance for From Software. I'm not really sure. And he looks amazing, has a very good OST, but he's just an ancient dragon fight with Deathblight mixed in. In general, he's either forgotten about because of the long quest line to fight him and reach him, or just outright disliked. Even as the guy who always has a tendency to overrate presentation and look past bad gameplay if the boss looks cool, I think this boss is very mediocre, and I think the community has him right again. So I'll go properly rated again. The Fire Giant. I will never understand the Fire Giant disrespect. He's widely considered one of the worst bosses in Elden Ring by people. Like, you see him get complained about a lot on Reddit, YouTube comments, people ranking him in their videos. I get it, his rolling is annoying, and I won't argue that, but that's the only thing that I really think is bad here. I've always liked the Fire Giant. Fighting him on horseback is awesome, and his health pool is ridiculous, but it's a fair fight because of how telegraphed his attacks are. He is a great boss, and not only am I going to say underrated here, I will die on the hill saying this is the most underrated boss in the game, bar none. Okay, so I don't like Mohg, Lord of Blood. I don't like this boss because of the blood flame all over the place, and stepping in it drives me insane. However, one thing I have been blessed with in life is self-awareness, and essentially, Mohg is a boss I don't like because I'm bad at him, straight up. I'm not the best Souls player, I'm just a passionate one. If you appreciate that, definitely stick around, maybe like and subscribe, and maybe check out some other videos. But I'm going to say the community has him right here, and I don't. I don't like him, but it's a skill issue. So you know what? Properly rated. Maliketh is one of my favorite bosses in the game. I'd say my favorite in the main game of Elden Ring before the DLC and all that. It's pretty crazy how ridiculously edgy looking he is, but somehow when you know his story, he's such a badass and scary entity in this world that it just works. When Elden Ring first came out, there's a bunch of people who thought he was too hard and didn't give any openings. This is a big part of the whole difficulty discourse from a long-time fans not wanting to adapt to harder bosses, and they kept crying and whining about having to roll and about bosses' combos just being oh so long and too much for them. I'm happy to say I always loved Maliketh. He was one of the most challenging bosses before Shadow of the Erdtree came out, but he was never unfair. I loved figuring out when those openings to attack him were when I was first fighting him, and once I did, this fight made sense and became more of a back and forth than I originally thought. Nowadays, Maliketh is universally loved because I think the difficulty discourse is quieted down, and when it does flare up, it's about the DLC bosses. Long story short though, I was right, and I always am, properly rated. Dragon Lord Placidusax is one of the best dragon fights in From Software in Souls history. His gameplay isn't always the most exciting, but it doesn't matter when the presentation is this damn good. Everybody loves Placidusax, everyone, but I'm going to say underrated for one reason. People frequently put him behind Midir and Bale, and while Bale is no doubt number one for me, Placidusax is better than Midir. We're in the year 2025 now. Midir is still fun, but Placidusax is easily better than him just because of how much Dark Souls 3 has aged. I don't know, I think a lot of these late game bosses are properly rated, but I'll say underrated for that specific reason. This is supposed to be fun anyway. Godfrey is one of the best bosses in the entire series, and you have to go out of your way to find anybody who says otherwise. Phase 1, you have a duel against him where he's using his axe, and it's really satisfying to dodge those just heavy-hitting axe swings and jump over his stomping attacks. In Phase 2, you're being chased around the arena like you're his prey and he's the predator. Both phases are awesome, and they're so insanely different, it's wild to me that they pulled that feeling off of just completely different paces to each phase. I've never met someone who doesn't like this boss. You know it, I know it, literally everyone knows Godfrey is an all-time boss. Properly rated, that's hard to say. Next is Malenia on this Vextra Life article I'm basing this off of, but we're going to save her for last, you'll see why. So before we get to the Shadow of the Erdtree bosses, let's do the Elden Beast. We all love Phase 1, Radahn of the Golden Order. I think he's kind of like Godfrey in that sense. Everybody knows this is a great fight. His hammer swings are fun to dodge, and it's a straightforward but fair fight. Some of the holy attacks can be a bit bullshit in the second half, but overall it's awesome. The great divide is the Elden Beast, because he gets a ton of hate for how much he runs away. And for me, this issue was entirely fixed when they made Torrent able to be summoned in the Shadow of the Erdtree patch, and it's a great, just S-tier boss for me now. But even before this, people acted like it was way worse than it was. The undeserved hate Elden Beast got makes me say this was underrated even before that, so I'm going to go underrated here. So let's get into the DLC, the Dancing Lion. Hey, guys, have you heard this one? The camera's the real boss here. But yeah, the Dancing Lion is a great boss. But one thing I don't see mentioned that much is he's really fun and holds up really well on replays because of going through all the different phases he does, like the different forms. So I think the fact that he holds up so well on replays and just going up in those higher new game cycles, that does make him underrated. Real quick though, deciding on Shadow of the Erdtree bosses may be a bit harder because a lot of the discourse around this DLC makes my eyes roll into the back of my head. Some of my takes on the community's opinion on these bosses might be outdated because I choose just not to engage with a lot of the same old Shadow of the Erdtree arguments and hate that I hear, so just want to make that perfectly clear going forward. Rolana the Twin Moon Knight, God I love this fight. Rolana in terms of pure gameplay and her moveset is just pure perfection. The only thing I don't like is maybe, and this is just really nitpicking, is maybe that one uppercut swing because of how quick it is. It feels unreactable, but then again, I'm getting pretty old. Everyone always points out ad nauseum how she has no cutscenes and the build-up sucks, and there you are kind of right, but the fight itself is 10 out of 10. I'm going to go ahead and say underrated because I don't think she gets a lot of due for how great that moveset is to fight against. So yeah, I wish there was a cutscene, I wish there was a better build-up than just finding her in a hallway somewhere, but it's great. The Putrescent Knight suffers a lot of the same issues. There's no cutscenes here, but even worse is his design is pretty mediocre and his lore is, not the best. However, I think the Putrescent Knight is a tad underrated because the boss itself is a fun fight, even if it feels like a mini boss and how it comes across. I like dodging through his move where he goes off the horse, and the ring of Putrescents you have to jump over was unique and really cool. I'm going to say underrated here. The Scouter Tree Avatar is a boss, and he exists. He's always been one I've never had a strong opinion on, one way or the other, and I don't see him bought up much anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and say properly rated for that reason. I don't have a take here, I'm sorry. Messmer the Impaler is one of the best bosses of all time. He might be the best boss ever made in a Souls game, but that's a story for another video. Fighting Messmer's spear in hand is amazing, and the flow of this whole duel is sensational. Something I didn't realize while getting into the community takes on Messmer is the love Messmer's assault gets. That's been my favorite attack in the game since Shadow of the Erdtree came out. These two is hectic and chaotic, and I mean this in the best way, like it's just all over the place. It's a bit easier once you realize you can hit him and the snakes for double the damage at certain times, quickening the fight a lot. Let me know which phase you guys like more here, because I still say phase 1, but it's close. But yeah, even the total weirdos who hate on this DLC and talk about artificial difficulty and go to sleep to critique videos every night, they still will glaze Messmer. He's one of the best bosses of all time. I think we all got him right here. He's properly rated. Romina saying the Bud is a joke when it comes to difficulty, and that's always been my issue, because usually difficulty doesn't matter, but a boss protecting the final area of a From Software DLC should leave me battered, bruised, beaten, humiliated, emasculated. Romina just folds like a cheap chair. Truthfully, I don't think she gets bought up enough anymore for me to say anything other than properly rated. She's forgotten about for a reason. Metter Motherfingers is a trash boss that we all hate and we all should. Every attack is pretty easy except for a select few that are very hard to avoid, like her laser attack, which also wastes a ton of time. Properly rated. Fuck this boss. Midra, the Lord of Frenzied Flame, is amazing. I love this boss. The buildup is going through the Abyssal Woods is so eerie, and the fact Torrent won't help us during that part made for annoying gameplay, but made the buildup to the boss so good. Midra, the fight itself isn't that mechanically difficult. It's very easy, but it's a fun boss, and when you mix in the build-up I mentioned, it's just great. Midra is another like Messmer that I would say even when people hate on this DLC and talk about how bad Shadow of the Erdtree is to them, they still give Midra his due, so I'm going to say properly rated here. Commander Guy sucks. He's bad. The challenge running community of Elden Ring constantly defends him in my comment section, but for the average player who's not studying frame data, he's not a fun boss, and it's not only a charge attack, he's just boring outside of one bullshit move. Take for the example, his OST is shared with the mini-bosses of the main game. Nothing here stands out as memorable besides his admittedly cool-looking design. I just don't find anything else interesting or fun. So while Commander Guys does get a solid amount of hate, I still don't think it's enough, and the fact he has a fan club in my comment sections, anytime I bring him up is just outrageous to me, so I'm going to go overrated here. Bale is the best dragon fight in From Software history, and it is not close. Malenia and Placidusax have nothing on Bale to dread. The presentation of this boss is almost unfair how downright awesome it is. It's a fun boss with attacks as flashy as they are fun to go up against. I seriously just love Bale, and I am very tempted to go underrated here because I think the gap between him and Messmer is closer than people think. He's one of the best bosses ever in Souls games to me. I wrote down properly rated, but I'm going to go with he's underrated. Reason being, it's not a two-horse race between him and Midir for best dragon in the series. He's in his own league, and he's almost very close, I'd say, to Messmer as the best boss in Elden Ring. Promise Consort Radahn is also one of the best bosses I've ever played. Man, Elden Ring really just has so many good bosses. However, he gets a lot of hate because he's too hard, and we call that a skill issue. This boss is phenomenal and not overtuned anymore after his nerfs. Nothing is unfair like how his cross-slash used to be, so I'm going to go underrated here. And last up we have Malenia, and in my original boss tier list, I rated Malenia as an A tier fight, and I said Waterfowl is fun to dodge if you put in the time, but it's just too outrageous an attack for the average player. You guys convinced me correctly that this is not a boss for the average player. So I got her wrong. I'm going to say that she's properly rated as one of the best bosses in the entire series. If you want to check out that video of the Elden Ring boss tier list, it's on the screen now. Love you guys. See you in the next one.